It's April 1st, 2019, and we're on the 33 freeway. And we're very close to the Rose Valley turnoff. And this is a great example of how the vegetation is recovering post-fire. So the Thomas fire 16 months ago came roaring through this area. And you can see that these hill areas were essentially completely burned or very close to completely burned. The fire was moving this way, and so some of these ravines were a bit protected, and the fire jumped and sort of went over and didn't necessarily burn everything. So in those areas, the rains of the last two seasons really seem to have helped. Last year, but particularly this rain season, the water year of 2018-2019, really have helped. So right now you can see huge amount of coloration, a lot of color variation as the wildflowers and everything's blooming, which is just fantastic. So we do have some patches, such as up here, there's some more grasses, but by and large what we're seeing is herbaceous recovery. If we look to this side of the hill, a little bit hard with the sun, but this area also completely burned. And so here we have a lot of skeletal shrubs, and the recovery here has mostly been herbaceous underneath. And that's what we typically see in our chaparral scrub or these dryland, shrubland areas that have been burned. We see if a tree is okay, such as this little scrub oak right here. This guy is alive and has set tons of acorns. We can come up here and look at all these acorns, so that's pretty cool. And so this guy escaped burning, and so by and large this hillside here didn't get much of a burn right after I was up here, right after the Thomas fire, and this was fairly intact. A little bit of scorching here and there, but pretty much intact. So here with intact vegetation, they can throw out leaves, boom, and get right on to reproducing with this abundant water. These more stressed areas will take them more time. And so we see the vegetation beginning to return to the base. So there's a lot of basal resprouting, and then of course the herbaceous stuff that's coming up underneath. And so when we combine them together, that's when we see this really cool, neat mosaic. You can see on the other side of the valley here, which really has this combination. And this is fantastic. So this is meaning that critters, birds, let's say, that need more mature vegetation, places the nest off the ground, for example, they can find that. At least critters like birds that can fly a significant distance. And then there's say, I don't know, onions and asters and things of that nature on the other areas for critters that need those types of, say, food provisioning. It's a little bit harder if you're a squirrel or a mammal that has to move across this landscape to find these patches. But overall, we're seeing a nice heterogeneous pattern that's returning, and that's what we see a lot with more traditional fires, where we have a little burn here, a little burn there. The worry is with these larger and larger scale fires that we're seeing smaller patches. The heterogeneity created, the burn impact is much more homogeneous across the landscape, so it's much more uniform, the impact. So while we do have some of these pockets, as we move into this era of more and more burns, one of the concerns is that we're going to lose some of this patchiness. The great equalizer here is, of course, rain. If we have good rains in the wake of these fires, the vegetation, by and large, can recover. The question is, will it, and will our pattern of rains and precipitation allow us to recover quick enough in this incredibly variable time that we find ourselves in. So anyway, 16 months after the Thomas fire, up here above Ojai, up in the Los Padres, things are looking much better than I had feared on during the exact aftermath of the Thomas fire. So things are looking good. Let's hope for more rain. Let's hope for more productivity.